Every 2 minutes, it kills a child. And the worst part? Right now, as you watch this, it is preparing for its next season. And this time, it's heading straight toward Europe. Every single year, this lone creature terminates more human lives than sharks, crocodiles, lions, tigers, venomous snakes, and all the bloody wars on this planet combined. It isn't a grizzly bear, it isn't a pack of wolves, and it isn't some exotic apex predator lurking in the depths of an unmapped jungle. It is a creature that weighs less than 1 single milligram, a creature you routinely brush away with a casual wave of your hand, the mosquito. From just one single disease it transmits, malaria, more than 1 million people die every year. And if you add up the entire terrifying cocktail of pathogens this tiny, bloodthirsty creature spreads, the body count easily rises to 750,000 deaths annually. And that is according to the most conservative, tightly vetted estimates. 750,000. For comparison, sharks kill approximately 10 people per year, crocodiles around 1,000, snakes roughly 100,000. The mosquito destroys human families 7 times more than all the venomous snakes in the world combined. This evolutionary machine has existed on Earth for 243 million years. It survived the dinosaurs, outlasted several mass extinctions, and every single summer, it defies global civilization to show up in your bedroom again. Small, almost invisible, paired with that unbearable, high-pitched whining right over your ear. I admit that for a very long time, I personally couldn't take the mosquito seriously. It was just a tiny insect, an annoying summer nuisance, and nothing more. That's how I thought about it, until I started digging deeper into the data. That's when I had to completely reevaluate my entire view of this organism. Hi, I'm Thomas, and welcome to Wilder. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on the mosquito, who this creature actually is under the microscope, how its terrifying bite works from the inside out, and the biological trickery behind why you don't feel it at all the exact moment it happens. We will explore the dark chemistry of attraction, why mosquitoes barely bother some people, while others get systematically bitten from head to toe in a single night. What would actually happen to our global ecosystem if mosquitoes suddenly vanished overnight? The answer to that will completely surprise you. And finally, we'll look at how humanity has been waging a high-tech war against this insect for decades, and why, honestly, we are currently losing. Before we dive into the anatomy, let me know in the comments below. Do mosquitoes hunt you down relentlessly, or are you one of the lucky ones they almost completely leave alone? You'll soon understand the exact scientific reason behind your answer. Stick around. This is going to change how you look at the summer forever. Let's start at the very beginning. Who actually is the mosquito, and where did it come from? Mosquitoes belong to the order Diptera, which translates to true flies. Houseflies, horseflies, and botflies all fall into this massive evolutionary branch. In total, entomologists have cataloged approximately 160,000 known species. The name Diptera itself reveals their most essential design feature. These insects possess only one pair of functional wings. The second pair evolved over millions of years into tiny, club-like structures called halteras. We'll break down their exact function in a moment, but they are precisely what is responsible for the psychological warfare of that sound driving you crazy at 3 a.m. Right now, there are approximately 3,600 distinct species of mosquitoes on the planet. The vast majority of them are completely harmless to us. They feed peacefully on flower nectar and have absolutely nothing to do with humans. There are midges, Chironomidae, that gather in massive smoky clouds over lakes. They don't possess the mouthparts to bite. There are winter mosquitoes that stay active in freezing temperatures, crawling across open snow. And then, there is Belgica antarctica, the only insect native to the harsh Antarctic continent. It has no wings, doesn't bite a soul, and can survive being frozen completely solid. In the spring, it simply thaws out and walks away as if nothing happened. But today, we are hyper-focused on the family Culicidae, the true blood-sucking mosquitoes, and primarily the common house mosquito, Culex pipiens. This is the specialist that lives all around us, in every concrete city, by every stagnant pond, and inside every bedroom with a cracked window. Blood-sucking mosquitoes made their debut approximately 100 million years ago. This means that iconic dinosaurs, tyrannosaurs, diplodocus, pterosaurs, already suffered from their relentless bites. The earliest ancestors of the Diptera order appeared even further back, roughly 243 million years ago during the Middle Triassic. Back then, they were microscopic, resembling modern midges, and likely sustained themselves purely on plant juices. Blood only entered their evolutionary diet later, when a critical mass of large, warm-blooded creatures started moving across the prehistoric landscape. Several beautifully preserved mosquitoes have been recovered from amber dating back 45 to 100 million years. Inside the dark stomach of one of these fossilized specimens, scientists discovered undeniable traces of blood, quite possibly dinosaur blood. Yes, exactly like the premise of that famous Hollywood film. And no, you can't actually resurrect a dinosaur from it. DNA completely breaks down over a few million years, but the raw fact itself is mesmerizing. Today, mosquitoes inhabit every single continent, including the brutal Arctic and subarctic regions. In the tundra and taiga, their concentration during the fleeting summer months is so massive that northern indigenous peoples literally built their entire nomadic way of life around this reality for centuries, but we'll map that out in detail later. What's truly fascinating is something else entirely. Despite existing for hundreds of millions of years, mosquitoes haven't practically changed their basic engineering blueprint. It's as if evolution looked at the design and decided, this system is flawless. There is absolutely nothing left to optimize. The same thin, delicate legs, the same modular proboscis, the same rigid dependence on water for reproduction. That alone testifies to the extraordinary, terrifying efficiency of the entire design. For generations, scientists hotly debated why mosquitoes transitioned into bloodsuckers in the first place. The most convincing evolutionary theory goes like this. The transition to hematophagy, blood feeding, occurred hand in hand with the spectacular rise and spread of large mammals. Warm, slow-moving, fur-covered creatures represented a massive walking jackpot of protein, available practically at any hour of the day. Several evolutionary lines of mosquitoes independently discovered this premium resource around the exact same time. Today, there are highly specialized elite units among blood-sucking mosquitoes. Some target mammals exclusively, others hunt birds in the canopy. A third group specializes entirely in cold-blooded reptiles and amphibians, and only a small, highly adaptable number of species, including our common house mosquito, are aggressive generalists, willing to suck blood from absolutely anything: humans, cattle, birds, frogs. It is precisely this versatility that makes them extraordinarily effective, lethal disease vectors. They act as a biological bridge, easily transferring pathogens from one species straight into another. Now, let's look at what a mosquito actually is when viewed as a machine. Because it truly is a machine. Microscopic, hyper-precise, and honed by hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary testing. A mosquito's body is a masterclass in lightweight architecture, consisting of 3 core modules: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Its overall length ranges from 4 to 14 millimeters, depending on the species. An adult mosquito weighs a mere 1 to 2.5 milligrams. That is significantly less than a single drop of water. Let's look at the aerodynamics of the wings. Mosquitoes are superb flyers, and that is not an understatement. A single mosquito wing beats between 500 and 800 times every single second, and some specialized species crank that up to 1,000 beats per second. For context, a honeybee beats its wings about 200 times, and a pigeon manages around 10. Yet, a mosquito's wingspan measures just a few fractions of an inch, and the amplitude of each stroke is only about 40 degrees, which is incredibly narrow. But here is the trick. At the very end of each downstroke, the mosquito rapidly twists its wing, creating miniature, high-velocity air vortices at the edge that generate massive extra lift. Scientists only uncovered this hidden fluid dynamics in 2017, when they finally filmed a mosquito's flight path using an array of 8 synchronized cameras, filming at a staggering frequency of 10,000 frames per second. That characteristic, maddening whine is precisely the acoustic signature of these ultra-fast wing beats. The halteres, those tiny remnants of the second pair of wings, vibrate completely out of phase with the main wings to act as gyroscopes, amplifying the overall sound. You can easily tell a common fly apart from a mosquito just by listening. A fly buzzes because it has fewer wing beats and a lower frequency. A bumblebee hums even slower. A mosquito whines. It possesses the highest acoustic frequency of them all. But the whining isn't just an accidental side effect of flight mechanics. For mosquitoes, it is a highly sophisticated language. A male locates a female in the pitch black, specifically by tracking the exact frequency of her wings. Females and males emit sounds at entirely different frequencies, but here comes something truly remarkable. Peer-reviewed research has shown that at the exact moment of courtship and mating, the male and female rapidly adjust and synchronize their wing beat frequencies. They literally tune into each other in mid-air. Entomologists call this an acoustic duet. An insect the size of your fingernail performs something we would classify as complex musical harmony in humans. A mosquito's eyes are compound, built from hundreds of tiny individual lenses called ommatidia, and they occupy practically the entire surface area of the head. Its vision isn't tailored for sharp, high-definition details, but it tracks motion with incredible refresh rates. In the dead of night, when there is a complete absence of ambient light, vision barely helps. That's when the mosquito seamlessly switches to entirely different sensor arrays, which we'll discuss in the next section. The mosquito's primary tactical tool is the proboscis. From the naked eye, it looks like a single, rigid, thin needle. But inside that needle, 6 separate surgical tools are masterfully hidden. 2 pairs of jaws, the mandibles and maxillae, serve to saw through human skin. 1 specialized channel serves as a pump to suck blood, and another independent channel is used to inject saliva. The entire complex apparatus is safely housed in a soft lower lip called the labium, which bends during a bite and remains on the surface like a flexible sheath from which the inner blades slide out. This mechanism is what fascinated me the most when I first studied its anatomical blueprint. 6 independent tools packed inside a proboscis thinner than a single strand of human hair. This is not a primitive bug. This is an advanced engineering solution. I'll add one more anatomical fact that most people are completely unaware of. A mosquito's abdomen is uniquely designed to expand to a ridiculous degree. The individual chitinous segments are connected by highly flexible, elastic pleural membranes. When a female successfully taps a vein and sucks blood, the abdomen inflates like a balloon, taking on a tense, almost spherical shape. During a single feeding session, a female can drink an amount of blood that multiplies her own body weight several times over. To put that into perspective, that is roughly equivalent to a human being suddenly sitting down and drinking 40 gallons, or 150 liters, of water in one sitting. A mosquito's long legs are covered in tiny, highly sensitive hairs called sensilla. Thanks to them, it instantaneously perceives microscopic surface vibrations, minute air currents, and specific chemical compounds. The legs function de facto as both tactile organs and an extended part of the olfactory system. The millisecond a mosquito lands on your skin, its feet are already running a chemical analysis to determine whether that exact spot is suitable for a deep puncture. The antennae of the male are long, feathery, and densely hairy. They function as a highly precise, directional audio receiver designed to capture the exact frequency of the female's flight. In the female, the antennae are significantly more modest visually, but in return, they are packed with far more developed olfactory receptors designed for long-range tracking. And here we arrive at the most interesting biological reality. The mosquito that bites you is always, without exception, a female. Male mosquitoes do not drink blood at all. They feed exclusively on flower nectar and sweet plant juices, fulfilling a role similar to bees. A male lives an incredibly brief life, usually about 2 weeks. During this window, He has a single, absolute task: find a flying female, fertilize her, and pass on his genetics. After mating, the male's life cycle is complete, and he usually dies shortly after. A female lives substantially longer, anywhere from 1 to 2 months under favorable environmental conditions, and for most of this time, she feeds entirely on sugar from nectar too. She only requires blood at one specific, critical moment, when it's time to develop her eggs. The reason is simple biochemistry. Protein and iron are absolutely essential for egg development, and there is virtually zero protein in plant nectar. Blood is a highly concentrated source of pure protein. After a successful blood meal, the female's body utilizes those proteins to lay a massive clutch of 150 to 300 eggs. If she fails to secure blood, a clutch will still happen via her internal reserves, but it will be tiny, around 10 eggs. The difference is mathematically critical for the survival of the species. The female deposits her eggs exclusively on the surface of standing water or right along the damp edge. Any stagnant water will do: a muddy puddle, a swamp, a small pond, a forgotten bucket in the garden, or even a tiny pocket of water trapped inside a plant leaf. The entire subsequent development takes place completely underwater, spanning both the larval and pupal stages. Fishermen know mosquito larvae incredibly well. The red bloodworms sold in pet stores are exactly them. The larvae breathe through a specialized respiratory tube called a siphon, which they stick just above the water's surface. The moment you touch or shadow the water, they flash dive into the depths for safety. The entire cycle from an egg to a fully functional adult flying mosquito takes a mere 7 to 14 days, depending on the ambient temperature. It accelerates dramatically in hot weather and slows down in the cold. But what happens when winter arrives? Different species have evolved vastly different survival strategies. Some adult females enter a state of so-called diapause, a type of deep insect torpor. They hide away in dark basements, caves, or deep cracks in stone walls. Their metabolism slows down almost to absolute zero. When you suddenly spot a lone mosquito flying around your living room in the middle of January, it is most likely a dormant female that was prematurely woken up by your indoor central heating. Other species choose to overwinter completely in the egg stage. The eggs are biologically engineered to survive hard frost, remaining dormant until they wake up in the spring thaw. That's why the first massive swarms of mosquitoes appear immediately after the snow melts, the moment the temperature inches above freezing. Mosquito mating takes place right in the air, inside massive swarming clouds. Males gather over a prominent physical landmark, like a specific tree, bush, or fence post. The female flies directly into this cloud of synchronized sound, and a male instantly locks onto her by tracking her wing frequency. After rapid fertilization in mid-air, the female leaves the swarm and immediately goes on the hunt. She is looking for blood for her future clutch. It is important to understand one thing: the female doesn't bite us out of malice, nor because she is personally hungry. It is a purely maternal, reproductive necessity. No blood means no offspring. The more blood she secures, the more eggs she can successfully mature. That is precisely why a single female can bite you multiple times across her lifespan, each time right before a brand new clutch. She lives up to 2 months, and during that time frame, she can manage to lay several distinct series of eggs. So if you feel like the exact same mosquito is returning to bite you over and over again inside your room, that is a completely realistic scientific scenario. And now, let's unpack the answer to the core question. Why do mosquitoes bite some people constantly, while leaving others almost entirely untouched? A female mosquito tracks her target using an intricate multi-layered guidance system, utilizing different sensors at different distances. Phase 1. Up to 160 feet, 50 meters, out. The primary long-range guide is carbon dioxide. Every breathing, living creature exhales CO2, and the mosquito detects these faint chemical plumes using highly specialized receptors on her antennae. The larger the creature, the more carbon dioxide it pumps into the air, making it a higher priority target. Pregnant women, for example, breathe more frequently and deeply, attracting mosquitoes roughly twice as intensively. People right after heavy physical exertion exhale massive plumes of CO2, making them high visibility targets on the mosquito's radar. Phase 2. Within a few yards, thermal vision activates. The mosquito perceives the body's infrared radiation with extreme precision. Any warm living organism stands out like a neon sign against the cooler background of the environment. This is exactly why mosquitoes are vastly more active and dangerous at night. The ambient temperature drops, the temperature difference between your warm skin and the night air widens, and the thermal contrast becomes incredibly sharp. Phase 3. Up close, the ultimate tool. Smell. This is where the science gets truly fascinating. Every single person's skin secretes a completely unique, highly personalized chemical blend of volatile substances: lactic acid, ammonia, fatty acids, and acetone. These are all baseline components of our skin's scent profile. But most importantly, billions of microscopic bacteria live on the surface of your skin, and their exact composition is unique to you. It is these bacteria that largely determine how you smell to a mosquito. In some individuals, the skin bacteria produce chemical compounds that mosquitoes literally adore. In others, the bacteria produce compounds that function as a powerful, natural repellent. There are genetically blessed individuals who have a high concentration of a substance called methylpiperazine in their skin. This compound literally knocks out the mosquito's sense of smell entirely. The female flies in, attempts to sniff the skin, completely loses her chemical orientation, and flies away confused. These are exactly the lucky ones whom mosquitoes almost never bite. Furthermore, genetic research has revealed several other surprising factors. Blood type. People with blood types A and O attract mosquitoes significantly more strongly than people with types B and AB. This is directly related to specific chemical saccharides released through the skin. Clothing. Clothing color matters. Mosquitoes see high contrast silhouettes, and a dark silhouette against a light background is highly visible to them. People wearing light, neutral clothing get targeted significantly less often. Diet. Drinking beer actively increases your attractiveness to mosquitoes. While the exact biochemical mechanism is still being mapped out by researchers, controlled experiments have repeatedly confirmed the data. After just one beer, the number of landing attempts and bites in the same time frame rises sharply, likely because it alters your skin's sweat composition and accelerates your skin's microcirculation. By the way, if you're enjoying this deep dive and learning things you didn't know about the natural world, take a quick second to subscribe to the Wilder channel and hit that bell icon. It takes exactly one click, it costs nothing, and it helps me out a ton to keep producing high-end documentaries like this. Thank you truly. Now, let me know in the comments. Do you notice that mosquitoes target you significantly more or less than the people around you? Now you know the exact bacterial and chemical causes behind it. There are a few more critical factors that dictate your attractiveness to mosquitoes, and some of them will definitely surprise you. Intense physical activity dramatically spikes the risk of getting targeted for several compounding reasons. First, the production of lactic acid in your sweat grows exponentially during exercise, which is one of the main chemical attractants for a female mosquito. Second, your respiration accelerates, meaning you are pumping out high volumes of carbon dioxide. Third, your core body temperature rises, boosting your thermal footprint. If you head out for a summer evening run through the woods, you literally turn into a glowing beacon for every hungry mosquito within a 160-foot radius. Alcohol consumption in general, not just beer, has an immediate effect. After consuming alcohol, your peripheral blood vessels dilate, causing your body temperature to rise slightly, while the composition of your exhaled air changes. Mosquitoes smell this systemic shift instantly. Interestingly, young children attract mosquitoes noticeably less than fully grown adults. A child's skin secretes far fewer of those volatile organic acids, and their basal metabolism isn't as chemically complex yet. That doesn't mean children don't get bitten. They do, frequently. But adults are, on average, far more aromatic and appealing to a mosquito's sensor array. Conversely, the scent profile of certain plants acts as a highly effective natural repellent. Lavender, basil, rosemary, eucalyptus, and citronella. They all contain concentrated essential oils that effectively mask or completely overpower your natural body odor. That is precisely why many modern repellents are formulated around these plant oils or their synthetic analogs. The undisputed heavyweight champion of chemical repellents is DEET, a powerful synthetic compound that literally blocks the mosquito's olfactory receptors. It doesn't kill the insect, and it doesn't even repel it in the conventional sense of the word. It simply cloaks your chemical signature, rendering you completely invisible to their tracking systems. And one final environmental fact for this section: mosquitoes heavily prefer highly humid air and tolerate dry, intense heat incredibly poorly. At temperatures climbing above 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, combined with low humidity, their metabolic activity drops off a cliff. Therefore, you will face far fewer bites in dry, scorching desert weather, whereas a warm, humid evening by a slow-moving river presents the absolute gold standard conditions for their hunt. The female has successfully tracked you down. She has discovered a prime spot on your skin where a warm blood vessel passes close to the surface. And now, the highly sophisticated extraction process begins. Let's break this down step by step, because it is a truly complex, mechanical operation. The tip of the proboscis lands on your skin. Immediately, the 6 hidden needles get to work. 2 pairs of jaws, the mandibles and maxillae, are deployed. 1 pair is finely serrated like a surgical saw, while the other is smooth. They do not plunge in with a single, brutal stab. Instead, they cut through the skin via a rapid, gradual sawing motion, moving back and forth alternately. This advanced mechanical trick allows them to penetrate deeper into the dermis with minimal physical effort and minimal tissue damage. While this synchronized sawing is happening, mosquito saliva flows smoothly down through one of the independent proboscis channels. This saliva is a complex chemical cocktail containing 3 key tactical components: an anesthetic, highly effective localized compounds that completely deaden skin sensitivity at the puncture site. This is the exact reason why you never feel the actual bite at the moment it occurs. You will only feel it afterward, when the chemical wears off and the mosquito is long gone. Anticoagulants, specialized proteins that completely prevent human blood clotting while the mosquito drinks. Without these anticoagulants, your blood would quickly thicken and coagulate inside the ultra-narrow intake channel, clogging the mechanism. Vasodilators, compounds that actively widen your microscopic capillaries, forcing your blood flow to become significantly more intense and pressurized for quick extraction. Once the hard puncture is complete, the second primary channel acts as a biological pump and begins to suck up the blood. The entire feeding process takes anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. During this brief window, the female drinks between 1 and 5 milligrams of blood. This means she multiplies her baseline weight several times over in a matter of minutes. So, where does that infuriating itching actually come from? The moment the female mosquito finishes her meal and flies away, your body's immune system detects the foreign, alien proteins left behind from her saliva. Your mast cells immediately trigger a localized immune response, releasing a flood of histamine. Histamine causes the surrounding blood vessels to dilate and swell, creating that classic red bump and triggering the nerve endings to signal intense itching. It is a localized allergic reaction, mild but highly unpleasant. In young children who are encountering mosquito bites for the first times in their lives, The immune reaction is often dramatic and highly swollen. In adults who have been bitten thousands of times over decades, the immune system has largely adapted, throwing a much weaker histamine response. Some older individuals eventually stop noticing bites almost completely as their bodies achieve desensitization. Here is a fascinating, grotesque detail. Sometimes a female targets a highly pressurized vein and drinks so much blood that she literally cannot generate enough lift to take off. In that catastrophic scenario, she will actively excrete a portion of the clear water fluid from the blood back out of her rear end to rapidly lighten her physical load. If she miscalculates her structural limits and continues to pump against a high-pressure vessel, her abdomen can literally burst. That is not an urban myth. It is a thoroughly documented entomological fact. Consider another evolutionary point. A mosquito drinks slowly and is in immense physical danger every single second she is attached to you. That is exactly why natural selection heavily favored females whose saliva contained an anesthetic strong enough to buy them the time needed to finish drinking undetected. Those ancestral mosquitoes whose anesthetic formulas were weak or faulty were instantly noticed and perished under a slapping human palm, removing their genetics from the pool. What should you actually do when you get bitten and the itching becomes completely unbearable? The absolute golden rule is, do not scratch. Scratching physically forces the mosquito's saliva proteins deeper into the surrounding tissue, intensifies the local release of histamine, and spreads the localized inflammation over a significantly larger surface area. Furthermore, breaking the skin with your fingernails opens a direct pathway for dangerous surface bacteria to cause a secondary infection. The simplest, old-school home remedy is basic baking soda mixed with a few drops of water, applied directly as a thick paste to the bite site. Baking soda lowers the skin's local pH and rapidly relieves the neural itching. Antihistamine creams or over-the-counter tablets work even better because they directly block the histamine receptors at the root cause of the itch. Interestingly, applying a safely warmed object directly to the fresh bite site also helps many people, as localized heat structurally breaks down and denatures some of the fragile proteins contained in the mosquito's saliva. And here we arrive at the heaviest, most sobering chapter of today's discussion. Because a mosquito's saliva isn't just a minor summer inconvenience. In vast regions of our planet, it is literally a flying death sentence. Let's return to that staggering number from the prologue. 750,000 human deaths every single year. Where do they actually come from? A mosquito isn't just a basic bloodsucker. It is, for all intents and purposes, a highly mobile flying syringe that carries lethal pathogens from one living creature directly to another via its saliva. Specifically in its saliva, not in its blood. The mosquito sucks your blood, but it injects its own saliva. If a deadly virus or a highly aggressive parasite is thriving in that saliva, it ends up directly inside your bloodstream within seconds. The absolute undisputed killer of humans is malaria. The pathogen behind malaria is not a bacterium, nor is it a virus. It is a complex single-celled protozoan parasite from the genus Plasmodium. It is transmitted exclusively by mosquitoes of the genus Anopheles, the notorious malarial mosquito. The biological process is clinical. The mosquito bites a human host already infected with malaria. The Plasmodium parasites enter the mosquito's gut, where a critical part of their reproductive life cycle takes place over several days. During the mosquito's next bite, the mature parasites migrate to her salivary glands and find themselves injected directly into a completely new human host. Once inside, malaria aggressively attacks your erythrocytes, your red blood cells. The parasite penetrates deep inside the cell, multiplies rapidly until the cell is entirely full, and then violently ruptures the erythrocyte, releasing a wave of new parasites to invade the next healthy cell. This cellular destruction triggers terrifying, exhausting fevers with highly characteristic cycles. Your body temperature climbs sharply to extreme highs, then crashes violently into freezing sweats. Simultaneously, severe anemia develops as your total red blood cell count gets lower and lower. In severe, untreated cases, the parasite clogs capillaries in the brain, liver, and kidneys, causing organ failure. Without modern medical intervention, malaria kills. Every single year, approximately 240 million human beings contract malaria. Around 1.2 million die from the complications. The vast majority of these deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa, and heartbreakingly, the vast majority of those are children under the age of 5. That breaks down to approximately 3,000 children dying every single day. Every day, 12 months a year. There is a fascinating, paradoxical genetic fact associated with malaria. In some specific regions of Africa, a severe genetic disease called sickle cell anemia is incredibly widespread. It is a striking genetic mutation where red blood cells take on an abnormal, rigid crescent or sickle shape, carrying oxygen poorly and causing chronic pain. It would seem to be a clear, devastating evolutionary disadvantage. But medical science discovered something shocking. The Plasmodium parasite cannot develop or multiply normally inside these altered, sickle-shaped cells. Genetic carriers of this mutation possess a massive, naturally selected resistance to lethal malaria. In geographical areas where malaria raged brutally for millennia, natural selection actively preserved this otherwise harmful mutation because it gave children a fighting chance to survive to reproductive age. It stands as one of the clearest, most visceral examples in history of how a single disease can literally rewrite the gene pool of entire nations. Alongside the parasite of malaria, we have dengue fever, a brutal viral disease transmitted by a mosquito from an entirely different genus, Aedes, commonly recognized as the tiger mosquito. Dengue thrives across the global tropics and subtropics, infecting approximately 400 million people annually. The classic form brings such immense, agonizing muscle and bone pain that its historical medical name is literally break-bone fever. The severe mutated form, dengue hemorrhagic fever, causes internal bleeding and can be swiftly fatal. Yellow fever, Zika virus, chikungunya fever. They are all spread by these exact same, highly urbanized mosquitoes of the genus Aedes. Zika proved to be especially terrifying for pregnant women. The virus directly targets and damages the developing fetus's central nervous system, causing microcephaly, a condition where babies are born with severely underdeveloped brains and skulls. The massive Zika outbreak of 2015 in South America claimed thousands of lives and left thousands of families with irreversible, lifelong consequences. In Central Europe, you practically won't find major populations of dangerous malarial mosquitoes right now. But that does not mean local mosquito populations are entirely harmless. They routinely transmit tularemia, a severe bacterial infection that aggressively attacks the human lymphatic system, and they are known to carry certain forms of viral encephalitis. Furthermore, in the southern regions of Europe, isolated cases of local, non-imported transmission of West Nile fever have been steadily recorded in recent years. As the global climate shifts, the geographic ranges of tropical mosquitoes are steadily expanding further northward into Europe every single season. It is no longer an abstract, distant threat on a map. There is one more devastating disease that is talked about far less in Western media, but completely alters a massive number of human lives: lymphatic filariasis, commonly known as elephantiasis. The pathogens here are microscopic, parasitic filarial worms that mosquitoes transmit in the exact same manner as Plasmodium. Once inside the human body, these parasitic worms migrate to the lymphatic vessels, where they settle, mature, and completely clog the body's fluid circulation. The result is a monstrous, irreversible swelling of the lower limbs, where a human leg or arm can increase its physical volume several times over, turning the skin thick and stone hard. According to official estimates by the World Health Organization, Approximately 120 million people worldwide are actively infected with this disabling parasite, mostly across rural countries in Africa and Southeast Asia. If we zoom out and look at the entire recorded history of our species, mosquitoes are definitively the deadliest creatures to have ever existed on Earth. According to calculations published by prominent historical researchers, mosquitoes are estimated to have killed roughly half of all human beings who have ever lived on this planet since the dawn of Homo sapiens. While that staggering number cannot be mathematically verified down to the individual, it accurately reflects the unfathomable scope of the problem. Malaria and mosquito-borne plagues have quietly dictated human history from the shadows. Alexander the Great reportedly succumbed to a sudden case of malaria, as did several powerful Roman emperors and countless millions of soldiers locked in military campaigns throughout the centuries. Historically, major wars were often lost not to the military strategy of the opponent, but to the local mosquito population. Armies routinely collapsed and died off from malaria far faster than they could be killed by enemy weapons. When you fully realize this, your entire view of human history shifts. The mosquito isn't just an annoying summer insect. It is one of the primary macro factors that actively shaped the rise, fall, and very destinies of human civilizations. After laying out all of this terrifying medical data, a completely logical, angry question arises. What purpose do mosquitoes actually serve in nature? Wouldn't the planet be an infinitely better, safer place if we simply engineered them out of existence? The ecological answer is completely unexpected, and frankly, it irritates a lot of people. Mosquitoes are deeply integrated into the planetary web, and if they were to suddenly disappear tomorrow, the cascading consequences would be catastrophic. Let's look at the Arctic as a prime example. Every summer, truly massive, apocalyptic clouds of mosquitoes emerge simultaneously across the vast wetlands of the northern tundra. There are so unimaginably many of them that their dense swarms literally darken the air over the bogs, resembling thick pillars of smoke. That is not a poetic metaphor. It is a very real, terrifying natural phenomenon documented annually by field scientists. And this extreme surge is precisely why millions of migratory birds fly thousands of miles from the southern hemisphere every single year. Ducks, geese, shorebirds, and songbirds. They make this exhausting journey specifically to harvest this endless, high-protein food source. Mosquito larvae packed in the water and adult swarms filling the air form the absolute biological foundation of bird nutrition during the ultra-critical window when they must raise their fragile young. If you completely removed mosquitoes from the Arctic ecosystem, millions of migratory birds would either be physically unable to feed their chicks, or they would stop migrating to the north entirely, causing a collapse in bird populations globally. Consider the great caribou and reindeer herds of North America. They suffer immensely from mosquito harassment every summer. This is generally known, but what is less known is the fascinating fact that mosquitoes factually drive caribou migration routes. To escape the suffocating swarms of the low wetlands, caribou herds are forced to climb to higher, rocky mountain elevations or head out onto open, intensely windy coastal plains. In doing so, these massive herds carry plant seeds across vast distances on their hooves, heavily fertilize new territories with their waste, and systematically alter the entire vegetative structure of the pastures. Remove mosquitoes, and caribou migratory behavior changes completely. And with it, the entire botanical landscape of the north transforms. Furthermore, mosquito larvae live in the water and feed non-stop on microscopic organic material, algae, bacteria, and floating particles of decaying plants. In essence, they act as massive, natural water filters for shallow, standing reservoirs. Without their constant filtering, water quality in thousands of shallow lakes would deteriorate into toxic bacterial blooms. When adult mosquitoes finish their short life cycles and die, their massive biomass falls to the forest floor, enriching the topsoil with vital nitrogen and phosphorus, which is particularly significant in the nutrient-poor, fragile soils of northern wilderness regions. And here is one more point that will shock you. Certain mosquito species are vital pollinators. Because adult males and non-breeding females feed exclusively on plant sugars, they carry pollen from flower to flower during their rounds. For several rare species of wild orchids in Canada and Scandinavia, mosquitoes are documented as the primary pollinators. Remove them, and these plant species will completely cease to reproduce, vanishing forever. So the ecological answer is highly nuanced. If all mosquitoes disappeared right now, humanity wouldn't notice a global catastrophe on day one. But within a few years, insectivorous birds would suffer a massive population crash. The apex predators that feed on those birds would quickly follow. Freshwater bodies would stagnate, soils would lose vital nutrients, and northern vegetation would shift dramatically. Ecosystems are not a collection of loose pieces. They are highly interconnected webs, and the mosquito is not a decorative element. It is a foundational pillar. That is precisely why modern scientists, when talking about fighting the mosquito threat, never set a goal to wipe them out completely as a family. The surgical goal is entirely different: to selectively reduce the numbers of very specific vector species in very specific human centers. Eliminating the malarial mosquito from a vulnerable village in Africa is a humanitarian triumph. Eradicating mosquitoes across the entire face of the planet is a completely different matter, and the ecological consequences of that second option are practically unpredictable. Here is another mind-blowing fact I uncovered during my research that completely stunned me. Scientists calculated that in the Arctic, during the peak of summer, up to 9 billion mosquitoes can be physically present simultaneously on a single square kilometer of tundra. 9 billion per square kilometer. That is more than the total number of human beings currently alive on the entire globe, all packed into less than half a square mile of northern wetland. This exact staggering biomass is what fuels the survival of millions of birds and fish all through the brief Arctic summer. Humanity has been waging an all-out, high-tech war against the mosquito for a very long time, and this historical conflict is full of unexpected, dark twists. In the mid-20th century, global victory seemed firmly within our grasp. A revolutionary, highly powerful chemical insecticide known as DDT was synthesized. It was hailed as a miracle. Government agencies sprayed millions of tons of DDT over swamps, rural villages, and entire agricultural regions worldwide. Malaria receded almost completely in several major zones. Across Europe, public health campaigns factually eliminated endemic malaria precisely with the heavy help of DDT spraying. But then, the ecological bill arrived. It turned out that DDT is an incredibly stable chemical that stubbornly accumulates up through the food chain, destroying entire ecosystems. In apex predatory birds, DDT disrupted calcium processing, causing their eggshells to become tragically thin and fragile. The shells would simply crush under the weight of the nesting parents. Magnificent bald eagles, peregrine falcons, and brown pelicans found themselves teetering on the absolute brink of extinction. Eventually, realizing the incoming ecological collapse, the vast majority of nations strictly banned DDT entirely. With the chemical gone, malaria aggressively returned to its historic strongholds. With traditional chemistry failing, science turned to genetic engineering. Enter the strategy of genetically modified males. Scientists successfully engineered a specific strain of male mosquitoes carrying a dominant lethal gene. When these modified males are released into the wild, they compete with wild males to mate with females. However, the genetic offspring born from these matches inherit the lethal gene and die off completely before ever reaching flying adulthood. These modified insects have been released into the wild by the millions in trial zones across Brazil and Florida. In controlled experiments, the local mosquito population in the release zones dropped by a staggering 80 to 90%. However, there is a catch. An adult male lives only about 2 weeks, meaning millions of fresh, expensive lab-grown mosquitoes must be continuously produced and released week after week to maintain the suppression. The method is highly effective, but it is incredibly expensive and requires continuous, industrial-scale production infrastructure. A third, highly promising approach focuses on a bacterium called Wolbachia. This is a naturally occurring bacterium that comfortably lives inside the cells of roughly 60% of all insect species on Earth, but it crucially does not naturally occur inside Aedes mosquitoes, the primary vectors of dengue and Zika. In a brilliant breakthrough, scientists learned how to stably infect Aedes mosquitoes with this specific bacterium in the lab. Here is the magic. An insect infected with Wolbachia becomes biologically incapable of carrying or transmitting the dengue virus. The internal bacteria aggressively compete with the virus for resources inside the mosquito's body, completely blocking the virus's development. Meanwhile, the mosquito itself suffers no ill effects, lives a normal life, reproduces naturally in the wild, and seamlessly passes the Wolbachia bacteria down to 100% of her offspring. By systematically releasing these safe, Wolbachia-carrying mosquitoes into urban areas, the wild, dangerous population is gradually and permanently replaced with a completely safe one. Comprehensive field experiments conducted in Australia and Indonesia have already demonstrated a spectacular, multi-fold drop in localized dengue fever cases. It stands as one of the most brilliant, self-sustaining scientific methods in operation today. The war between humans and mosquitoes is far from over. It is a fluid, hyper-complex chess match spanning hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary design against a few decades of human technology. The next time you hear that unmistakable, high-pitched whine echoing over your pillow in the dark of your bedroom, remember, you aren't just listening to a simple bug. You are listening to an elite, highly optimized biological machine. An organism that outlived the dinosaurs, reshaped human empires, altered our very DNA, and continues to defy the greatest scientific minds of our modern civilization. It is small, it is fragile, but it remains the undisputed, ultimate predator of the human race. Thank you for watching this episode of Wilder. If this documentary changed how you look at the natural world, make sure to smash that like button, leave your thoughts on the skin bacteria discussion in the comments below, and subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into the hidden intelligence of the wild. Stay curious, stay aware, and keep exploring. I'll see you in the next video.